Hi, I'm Angela Poach, and I'm a Team CBT counselor and Christian life coach trying to make psychology practical. Today, I'm going to talk about the lack of control and happiness and how those are connected. Let me start with the premise happiness is not an elusive feeling only there when everything goes right. But how can we have happiness when so much that happens to us in life is beyond our control? And that can be sad and hurtful things. Well, let me tell you about Dee. Dee is obviously a fake name to protect her identity. Dee remembers being a happy 5-year-old little girl, even though she lived in extreme poverty. She was told she wasn't part of the family and bullied mercilessly. There was very little as a 5-year-old she could control. Yet, she found moments of joy. She recalls one day sitting on her wooden swing. She saw a rainbow, and it just, overcame her that she was loved, that there was a God out there that loved her, even though she wasn't religious or anything. And even though the world around her rejected and abused her. There are many things that are out of our control and things that happen to us by others. And while some people really get the short end of the stick, no one is immune. We all have experienced painful things in our lives. Yet, many find joy and happiness regardless of their circumstances. Okay, so you're asking me, well, what about reality? Aren't there just times in life where life is just miserable, mean, and unjust? Of course, no one gets 24/7 happiness. I'd never promise you that. To be honest, that wouldn't even be desirable. But that's a topic for another blog, another day. Okay, so the past has already happened, but how we perceive those events and what we dwell on can change. You would think that an event is just an event, right? Like once it's happened, that's it. There's no changing it. But in actual fact, brain chemistry is such that it allows us to change our emotional response to a stimulus even if the stimulus doesn't change. That's why Dee could sit with the memories of abuse and bullying. Now, she could choose to ruminate on the days where there wasn't enough food and she'd go to bed hungry. And like I said, she could sit with that. There were times where she could recall these events, but they lost their power over her emotions because she controls when she thinks about them, how much she thinks about them, and what she thinks about them. Well, lots of thinking going on there. She discovered it's okay to feel some pain because life is hard at times. But she can also think on the blessings too. And thus, she can write her story about reality. What if we could see our reality with so much emotional baggage? What if we could tone down the pain so it's not so overwhelming? Wouldn't that bring us more happiness? Absolutely. But we're not robots. We will have some negative feelings, and that's actually a good thing. In any case, you can't control the future no matter how much you think about it, and you can't change the past either. But facts themselves do not cause an emotional response. It's what we think about those facts that causes the emotions. Thus, we are what we think. So, the tool we're going to explore in this video is called What Story Am I Writing About My Reality? Using this tool, we can separate the facts from what we think about the facts. Now, look, you have every right to all of your thoughts and feelings. This is not about right and wrong or positive thinking, positive versus negative. This is about what you can have control over. You get to choose. So let me give you an example to explain how this works. Joe was given up for adoption when he was less than 2 years old. He was put in the foster care system, never got adopted. His birth mother refused to share any information about his birth father, and his foster parents were really quite serious. They focused most of their attention on work. He found himself working really hard, like hard labor on the farm from a young child until he left home. Those are the facts. Now, here's Joe's story as he tells it. As long as he can remember, Joe felt connected and loved by his foster parents. In fact, he doesn't call them foster parents at all. He says they're my real parents. He enjoyed spending hours in the field working alongside his dad. So much that he chose to stop school and go to work instead. And back in the 50s, he was allowed to do that. He recounts with joy and laughter various things that happened. He saw his father as serious, but that was protective as well. After all, there are a lot of dangers working on a farm. He recounts being woken up one time, just after going to bed, to be whisked off to social gatherings where he would fall asleep under his father's chair while he played the accordion. Actually, this happened more than one time. Joe felt special and loved. Others in the same house have a different story. One feels abandoned by their birth parents and wish their foster parents were more fun and less serious about work. Another recounts the seriousness is cold and thinks it's unfair they had to do so many chores. The facts are the same for each child that grew up in this home, but the story written by them is different. Again, I want to say it's okay to feel sadness when someone passes away or hurt when someone's cruel to you. And it's okay to stand up for injustice and be determined to do better. There is a season for everything, and you're not wrong because you feel differently from someone else. However, what does your overall story look like? That's the important question, because you do have control. I mean, how do you view your history, your current situation? What kind of glasses do you have on? Let's make this practical. After all, this is psychology made practical. So I want you to get out a piece of paper, or you can open a Word document, because this is a written exercise and it doesn't work very well unless you write it down. Okay, so you got your paper? Now, pick an event you'd like to explore. Perhaps it's one that's painful to think about. Now I want you to write that event at the top of the page. Be brief, to the point, just a sentence or two. Now I want you to draw 2 vertical lines down the page so you have 3 columns. Now in the first column on your left, I want you to write down all the facts of this event. Now, this could be more challenging than it seems at first. Many times we write down things we think are facts, but are actually interpretations or even assumptions. For example, you see a girl smiling. Now, if we say the girl is happy, that's an interpretation, because she could be smiling to hide fear or shame. We cannot see how someone's thinking or feeling. The facts are, a girl is smiling. Figuring out the difference between a fact and how you interpret a fact is very critical to this exercise, and it might take some time if you've never done it before. So here's how you can identify a fact. It will be a very specific, short detail that can be observed. In other words, if there was a video of the event, everyone that saw it would see the same thing, the same facts. Now, in the second column or the middle column, write down how you feel about those facts and what you think about those facts. At this point, you can write down everything that comes to mind. Now, in the third column, you're going to write down alternative ways to view that fact. Remember, like the little girl sitting there smiling? Well, I didn't say sitting, so I've added to the fact already, but so the little girl's smiling. So now there's some different ways you can interpret that, right? She could be, smiling because she's happy. She could be smiling because she's, uncomfortable. She's trying to hide being embarrassed, right? There's all kinds of things you could put there. And it's totally okay if you don't believe these. The purpose of this exercise is just for you to experience the fact that you could write a different story based on the same facts. So the facts don't change, right? The girl is smiling, but how we interpret those facts could change. I mean, it could be, oh, we feel warm and fuzzy inside because we see her smiling. Or we might be like, oh, she's smiling, but she's alone. I wonder what she's smiling at. I mean, it could go on, right? Okay, so pause this video and go ahead and do it. Okay, you back? Did you discover some interesting things? Maybe even some opposite ways of looking at the situation? I'm sure you did. Now, if you really struggle with this exercise, do it with a group of friends. It can almost be a game and be fun and revealing. So, what story are you writing about your reality?